So the topic for today's session is building AI-powered applications with Postgres extensions. So quick introduction from our side. Myself, I'm Induteja Eligeti. I'm the senior delivery consultant working for AWS. It's been around 20 years of experience in IT industry, and I have exposure mostly into the multi-cloud and multi-databases. So I have my colleague, my co-speaker Bhavani. So Bhavani, can you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, this is Bhavani here, working with Amazon from past 4.5 years. I have close to 20 plus years of experience, mostly into database. Primary focus is on database, worked on multi-cloud and multi-database migrations to core development as well, and looking forward to share the presentation with you all.
Yeah, so thank you, Bhavani. So here are our agenda items. So we will look into why Postgres for AI. So what is the importance of PostgreSQL in AI? What are those important Postgres extensions which we could use in developing an application in AI? So Bhavani is going to cover on those two topics, and then after that, I will be taking over building the AI applications workflow. So and then followed by I'll talk about two of the use cases. So it's just a 20-minute talk. So I'll have an overview of those use cases. But if anybody is interested to have some hands-on, so you can reach me offline on those use cases, and I can help you with the source code. And then followed by I'll talk about the best practices on building an AI application, and then Q&A. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Bhavani.
Thank you. So this session is more about the Postgres, so I don't really need to spend time about what is Postgres and what are the primary features of Postgres, because at least from past 2 days we are hearing more from the Postgres functionality. So today's session morely focuses on why Postgres for AI. So basically, if you see right now, with the data growing in any of the organizations, the primary focus is how do we maintain the data, and what is the cost incurred for maintaining the huge number of databases. So one of the key factor for going with Postgres is the break free from licensing, and unlocking the agility process, and reducing the technical debt. Those are the key things apart from the innovator faster capabilities that Postgres has. And when it comes to the OLAP or OLTP systems, right? The primary focus is how quickly we are accessing the data, and also the primary focus lies on the performance related things. So Postgres also provides the granular level of performance controls, either through programming or based on couple of functionalities that it has. And also it has something like customized data types and functions that can be done. And other key factor when we are talking about the Postgres for AI is the embedding similarity search functionality, especially considering the search functionalities or the AI related functionalities that are used in the Postgres functionalities. And especially when we are talking about extensions, what can be used for AI or any other related functionalities within Postgres, the main advantage of using the extensions is it's very easy to plug and play. Portability is there for any of the extensions, and we already know about what are the extensions and why we need the extensions. And moving on, let's talk about just a little bit about extensions. When we talk about any extensions incorporation into Postgres, it's something like it's an enhanced functionality. That means when we are using an additional extension, that means you are uh, using additional functionality. That doesn't mean that the core functionality is changing. It doesn't change, no changes in the core functionality, and it is easily adaptable to use any of the extensions which are supported in Postgres. And some of the specialized features, and right now Postgres is also growing, and AI features are also something which are additionally supported in Postgres. So the specialized features are something which can be supported in Postgres. So when we talk about extensions, right, at a high level, if you look into the overview, there are multiple extensions which are supported in Postgres. Let's say what are PostGIS, what are timescale extensions, PL Python, and some of the PG vector is the main thing which is for the search in, and one of the thing is extension is FDW. When we talk about FDW, like it's something like a linked server which can be used to extract the data from the external data sources. It can be Oracle, or if you see the diagram, right, it can be any other external system. It can be a database, it can be a flat file, or any other things. So through FDW, right, we can link to the external databases and extract and use that particular data and the functionality within the Postgres. So that is more about FDW, and a couple of, I mean, in the interest of time, we'll not go through each and every, or at least the high priority or most important Postgres functionalities extensions, but we will just be covering at a high level on few of them. One is, I mean, at a high level, if you see what are the key extensions that are used and what are their purposes, and in AML world, what are the use cases that it supports. Let's take PG vector. We are very well know that it is a vector number representation which is used for embedding objects. So that is more from the PG vector. So where it uses is mainly PG vector is very familiar or very popular because of its semantic searches or other search opportunities which it has, and especially all these are key functionalities when we are dealing with large amount of data and accurate data retrieval is something the primary focus. So similarly for like PG vector, we have Postgres, ML, MADlib, machine learning libraries, PL Python. Why PL Python is used? Then there is something called timescale DB, and we do have PostGIS, which is used for some of the location related geographical related analytics that is used for. So as I said, I'll be just focusing a little bit about couple of the extensions. One is something like PG vector. So if you I mean, maybe we already know about at a high level what is the definition of PG vector, but from the Postgres perspective, it simply, the simple definition is it stores and query the high dimensional data, vector data, and by using its semantic search functionalities. When we say semantic similarity functional searches, there are a couple of data functional search functionalities that it provides. Some of them are L2, cosine, Euclidean, inner product, and all those things. And some of the very commonly used or highly used are something like cosine and Euclidean. When you say cosine, right, it takes the angle between two suitable vectors. Either it can be a text or a vector data. And when you talk about the Euclidean, right, it uses something like time series data. So it all depends on our use case, when to use what. It is not only about what we are using, it is also about based on the use case, what type of data types or what type of indexing that we are using is the key functionality. So when it comes to the embeddings from the PG similarity search perspective, it supports around like 16,000 dimensions. And there are, again, when it comes to the indexing, right, there are a couple of indexings that it supports. But the key topmost indexing searches are one is INSW, HNSW, and IV flat. So these two are mainly used for fast retrieval of the data. And again, on case-to-case basis, when to go for IV flat and when to go for HNSW is, again, we need to make some judgment of when to use. In a general scenario, if the speed of the data is high and when you're dealing with an OLTP system, right, it is better to go with HNSW because it is very suitable for the real-time applications and real-time data. But when it is required to do a fast retrieval of the data, but the data set is little static, then you can go for IV flat. So that is at a high level the difference between those. We just gave a snippet of how the extension can be represented and how it an indexing like what I said, how can it be implemented is just a snapshot of it. So again, as I said, coming to the PostJS, right? Mostly it deals with the spatial data. That means in the current world, we are dealing most of the data. We highly use the telecommunication data for the retrieval, like GIS data or anything. In those scenarios, when you are dealing with the geographical locations and the geographical data, mainly PostGIS is one such extension which can be used in those scenarios. And it is, as I said, it is location based recommendations and spatial clustering for the geographical ML is there. And all these extensions on a very regular basis, all these functionalities are growing. So any new extension, new capabilities in these extensions, by just creating that extension, we can incorporate those functionalities. And time scale is one such thing which I said about time series analytical thing, where we can go with IoT data or monitoring and the forecasting data. In those scenarios, this time series analytic is heavily used. And in the real time dashboards also, when it is dealing with the time related uh, uh, retrieval or time related calculations, and when we are playing with the time related data for any analytical purposes, this extension is used. And when it comes to PL Python, right, what it uses is PL Python is just another extension, but what internally it does is it integrates both the Python into the Postgres. That means using the Python script, you can call that Python script into the Postgres. So where it heavily uses is when you have multiple API integrations that needs to be done, and the logic is built in Python, you can use that extension and use that particular functionality into the Postgres. So that is mainly PL Python, and it is heavily used. And we can also use any Python related embedded objects also into the Postgres, and especially when you are dealing with machine learning models, right? Python related functionalities can be incorporated into Postgres. At a high level, these are mainly about some of the extensions that we want to focus. And from the use case perspective, right? So we know that right now AI is everywhere. Some of them are already, there are some tools built, but there are some which are still going on. But in every domain it has touched. So when you talk about healthcare, right, it is used in the diagnostic reporting, it is used in the labs and everywhere. And let's say if we are talking about the predictive project analytics, everywhere it is there. So the prediction is there in everywhere. So when you talk about a hospital also, the predictive analytics is important. When you're doing a forecasting for any weather also, the predictive analytics is important. So these are a couple of the domains where not some, but in every area, but some of the domains that where it is heavily used, or the use cases where this AML with the Postgres functionalities can be incorporated, are just highlighted. And as we know, the key benefits are like we have the cost benefits, increased accuracy, improved models, and the productivity is something which is increased with the extensions and the functionalities what we are using for these domains. With that, I'll hand over to Hindu to continue the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Bhavani. So now we have seen that the extensions of the Postgres and some of the important extensions dealing with the AI development and all. So which Bhavani covered on the PG vector and PL Python and all. So now we will see how we develop an AI application. So before starting around that, so let me go over the different steps involved in developing an AI application. So a typical AI application usually follows these steps. So first is the problem identification and requirement analysis. So you need to identify what your problem is, and then gather the required information related to that particular problem which you wanted to solve. Next is the data collection and processing. So for creating the required output, so what is the data which is required? So this is most important step here. So what are the different sources from which you need to collect the data? And not just collecting the data, you need to process the data. So in the sense, like, you have to clean up. Not all attributes of data is required for your AI application. So what are those important attributes which are required? So you have to do some cleanup, churning, all those things, filtering of the data and all from your sources. So that is the second step. Next is model selection. So once you have cleaned your data and it's all good to go, so you need to identify the model, what model is suitable for your application which you wanted to create. So we'll see that in the later slides, but yeah, and then the model training. So we all know that it's not just the model which helps out, it's the training the data is important. So the more the data you train, the better the accuracy of your model is. So then once that is done, you have to do the model development and interference. So that means that once you decide that this is your model, so you need to check on what is that model. Is it a classification algorithm you have to use, regression or clustering? So what type of algorithm is required which suffice your application? And not only that, you need to, once the testing, you need to test that model with your new data and see how it is behaving. So that is the process of that. So once this model development is done, then is where you integrate your application with this particular model. And then the monitoring and maintenance and security and scaling, these are the part of your administrative works. So now you know that these are the steps involved in the application development, the typical AI application development. We will see where these Postgres extensions fit in each of these steps. So coming to the data storage. So you can leverage some of the extensions. So there are many extensions, but I just code down some of the important ones like PG Vector, HStore, JSON, JSONB if it is JSON type of your data, or if it is geographical data, you can use the PostGIS, or time data series, you can use the timescale. FDWs, it is foreign data wrappers if you want to get connected to the different sources. So yeah, we have, and then the data like PG Lakehouse. Likewise, for data preparation, we use PL Python, fuzzy string matching, Cube, PL Python, 3U. For model selection, training and inference, Madlib, Postgres, ML, Postgres Python, so which Bhavani spoke about the extension of this. And then embedding integration. So this is an important step here. So this is very important. We will see in the use case how we are leveraging this PG vector to convert the embeddings into vector and help with the similarity search and semantic querying. And then app development and integration. So you can use PG REST, PG AI, PL PG SQL, PL Python 3U, and etc. Monitoring and management, I think this is an administrative task, and there are couple of extensions here, whether it could be your PG start statements, PG auditing, PG cron for scheduling your jobs, PG monitor, PG bouncer, PG profile, auto explain. That's most important to identify your performance, where it is stuck and all. Then security and scaling. Yeah, security is a zero job. So we do have a couple of extensions in PG crypto, RLS, PG audit, etc. So like these are couple of the extensions. We have many more, but usually people prefer, I mean, based upon the generic data we have, these are some of the extensions we use it within the Postgres. Now, now we have seen the different steps of building an application and what are the extensions. We will now look into the core components of an LLM, large language model. So if you have to build a generative AI application, so those are the use cases which I'll go through in the next slides. So for that, we need to understand the LLM. So LLM is the heart of your generative AI. And generative AI is a subset of your artificial intelligence, and LLM being the heart of your generative data, it is being trained with your massive data. So it's a pre-trained model, basically. So this architecture basically talks about how we query an LLM and how we receive a response. So let's look into that in depth. So let's say first part is the UI part, where a user tries to query using an UI. It's basically a prompt. So you send a prompt to through a UI, and then it goes to the embedding model. So each and every prompt, whatever you receive to the LLM, it is sent the embedding model. So where these embeddings are converted into vectors. So vectors are your numerical representation of your embeddings. Embeddings is nothing but your unstructured data, whether it could be your text, your image, video, audio, whatever it is. So it converts that into vector. So, and these vectors are stored into vector database. And here in Postgres, we use PG vectors to store that. We will see that in the use case. But once it is sent to that PG vector for storing there, and then the data is filtered there, and then the initial prompt is actually sent to the prompt optimizer tool. So the prompt which actually we sent from the UI is further optimized through the prompt optimization tools. So, and then it is sent to the LLM API, and then to fasten the process, there is an LLM cache which you can use. But through this LLM API, we get the output, and this output is further filtered so as to remove any unwanted data, or anything related to any malicious data or something like that, and then sent out as an LLM output. And this is the response we receive back on the UI. So this is a typical working of an LLM on how it responds to a query. So we will now next look into some of two of the use cases. So first use case is about the product catalog similarity search solution, and second one is a chatbot application. So let me talk about the first use case, product catalog similarity search. So this is a typical working scenario where in e-commerce or Google, when you try to search a particular product, right, you get the similarity searches. So how it works behind. So we'll see that, and how a Postgres helps in this kind of solution. So here I have actually fed the data through a Kaggle dataset where it has all the product image information. So this is an unstructured information, and which I'm using a Jupyter notebook and then sending it to get the embeddings out of that. So I have used the Amazon Titan here to generate the embeddings, and then these embeddings are then converted into vectors, and then vectors are like the numeric representation of those embeddings, as you can see there, and these are stored in the vector database in PostgreSQL. And Postgres, here I am using Amazon Aurora Postgres, but yeah, typically you can use any service of Postgres in any cloud or anything. So from here, what happens is, this is where the input basically. This is all your data is converted into vectors and stored into the Postgres. Now what happens is, like, the Postgres uses this PG vector, and which does the similarity search and the semantic query, whatever the query you ask. So it identifies the similar searches based upon the numerical representation. It gets the closest numbers to that, which are nothing but your similarity searches, and then it sends back to the UI back with the similar product images. So that's the working of a typical product catalog similarity search solution. So this is the first use case, and then coming back to the chatbot application. So this is based on the RAG pattern. RAG is nothing but your retrieval augmented generation pattern. So this works in two steps. One is the retrieval. The retrieval is nothing but the same thing, whatever we have seen, the similarity search, the retrieving the similar searches, and then generation. So here we are using LLM here for getting the contextualization of your prompt. So that means whatever the search you are doing, it is sent to LLM to further tune it and give an appropriate information to us. It's not just a raw information for us. Let's say if I want to know what is the leave policy, so if it is a generic this kind of similarity search, it will just go into the documents and fetch only the similar searches. But in RAG, what happens is like it actually searches that, and whatever the response we get is actually sent back to the LLM. So here you can see the sixth step. So the response up till 1, 2, 3, it's like same thing what we have seen in the earlier slide. It's all retrieval. So all your embeddings are stored in Postgres as a vector DBs, and then all these are converted, and then you get the similarity searches. And then if you see the sixth step, so this acts as a prompt to LLM again. So you can see I'm using the Claude LLM here. So this again actually processes your prompt and gives back the response. And this response is more readable, more, I would say, accurate and more polished. It's like a contextual response. So that's how a RAG pattern works. And then we can use LangChain or LLama to have that integration with your LLM, the sixth step basically. So you can use that two things to integrate that with your LLM and then get the response back. Yeah, so this is a typical chatbot. So whatever the response you give, so it's going to process into the vectors and then get a similarity search and then give a better response than the routine similarity search. Yeah, so these are two use cases which I thought a basic use cases just for understanding purpose. But if you want to have a hands-on, reach me out offline and I will be able to help you out with the source code for this. And then finally on the best practices for building AI powered applications, indexing. So Bhavani talked about, right? So for fast retrieval for the vectors and all, it is very important that you use the indexing. Then partitioning, if you have large data, and definitely we deal with large data right now, right? So partitioning is very important. So you can use the declarative partition in PostgreSQL. Connection pooling, you can use PG Bouncer and this helps in scalability. And keep monitoring your performance to ensure that you know what are the pitfalls and what is the administration work which you need to do and tune your queries. And then security, it's a zero job. So ensure that you only pass the sensitive data and take care of your data promptly. And finally, but not least, be responsible on how you use the AI. So this is all, don't share your sensitive data because it is important that, your data it's very, really important. It's very sensitive. So be responsible on how you use AI. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah, you can use it both ways. So it depends upon, how you are integrating your LLM. So if it is integrated with a public LLM and all, so, and the knowledge base what you are feeding. Yeah. That's what I said. You should be very responsible. So what is your use case? You have to identify. So never ever share the things outside. And generally we create the applications and it should be secured. So take care of that. But yes, possibility is there. So it's how you expose your data. So if it's a sensitive data, yeah. And the last one on the responsibility with AI. Responsible AI is the concept. I mean, just go through that. There's a lot of things to learn there, and how you monitor your model, and all those things, so that you know ahead on where you are going wrong with your model, or is there any sensitive data which is being leaked in the model. That way you can control. At the same time, you are going to expose your data to the public. Yeah, so yeah, that's a good question. So there are tools actually. So I work for Amazon. So I know AWS SageMaker has couple of tools. SageMaker Clarify is one of the tool. So for monitoring your model, there are tools actually. So which talks about what is the drift with your model, or what it actually filters out, finds out is there any sensitivity data is being passed to the model. So those kind of things can be taken care with that is all the responsible AI which I was talking about. So it's a vast subject again. So definitely, actually, that is the first thing which we have to go through and then start the application building. But people usually start and then look into that later on. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Thank you.